A lot of y'all have been asking a ton of questions about Everest, so today I thought I would film an Everest Q&A video. Basically, what does intimacy look like on the trip? I did it twice.
She did it too.
Oh,
am I glad I did it? Yes, 100%.
Yeah. I figured what's better than me answering the questions is both of us answering the questions, since we both hiked Everest, and I feel like we had slightly different experiences. I feel like we're gonna answer some of these questions a little differently.
It's gonna be fun.
This girl says, did you lose a lot of weight? Yes and no. So you're hiking all day long, every day for hours and hours and hours. We were burning on average like anywhere from 25 to 3,500 calories a day.
That's a lot.
So at the end of the day, you are constantly in a calorie deficit. I felt like I was cinching my pants up every day a little bit tighter. I think I maybe lost like 2, 3, max 5 pounds. And by the time I got home, I was back to my normal weight. Dakota, on the other hand, he got home and we weighed him and he was 10 pounds lighter. What is your favorite thing that you brought? My favorite thing was my pee funnel that helped me pee like a boy. The toilets on the trail are about 50% of the time just dirty holes in the ground with a pile of crap underneath it. Sometimes you'll get lucky and you'll have like a Western toilet that like is a bowl that you can sit on. A lot of the times they still don't flush and they're still pretty nasty. Also, it's cold. As a girl, you don't want to have to pull down all your layers to go to the restroom.
I have two. The jerky. The jerky like saved me.
Yeah.
I needed protein, so definitely the jerky that Sean made us. My beanie. I wore my beanie 24/7.
We both wore it the entire time.
The only thing I wish I had more of was like snacks.
Someone said, what was your mental health like from the beginning to the end of the hike? Well, I think these are two different answers.
Yeah.
For me, I was like so positive. Like everyone was having such a hard time that very first night when we were hiking at night, and I was just having a grand old time. I was like, this is great. Like, I feel amazing. And it was pretty good up until I would say day 5. The night before day 5 was the night that I stopped sleeping. And after I stopped sleeping, things went downhill fast. I cried probably every day after that, struggled. It was so much harder to do things because you couldn't breathe, and then I wasn't sleeping. And everyone knows, if you don't sleep, you just turn into the worst version of yourself.
Mine was at the beginning of the trip due to getting sick.
So Dakota had food poisoning at the very beginning of the trip.
I was not smart and I had some eggs. The long day we were at the airport, so my first day was terrible for me.
Yeah.
And then after that, it just got better and better. So like usually Everest is the hardest, like base camp day is the hardest day, and that was like one of my easiest.
Yeah, well, he had thrown up 7 times that day and then had to hike and through the night
6 miles that night.
Didn't like have any food on his stomach, and the next day he was running a low-grade fever, so like he just had a really rough start. Yeah. Can unathletic people do this, or basically can anyone do this? I think anyone can do this. Genuinely, I don't feel like I am a particularly experienced hiker. I think anyone can do this trek. You just have to have a certain desire and also willpower. Like
if you're determined, like
if you are determined and stubborn and you want to get to the top, you will get to the top. Yeah. What was your worst bathroom experience? Having to poop on the trail for the very first time.
In the hole.
In the hole, on the ground.
In a bar.
Like, it wasn't like it was particularly bad. It was just like, there is nothing more like, than like yanking your pants down and having to, you put a foot on either side of basically just a cutout in the wood with a pile of poop right underneath you. One slip and you're going in it. Yeah, it's just a lot.
I was drinking 4 liters of water a day. You'd have to walk down the hall. By the time you got back to fall asleep, you were going again. So I ended up just peeing in a bottle.
He would buy these big water bottles. He'd pour the water into his Camelback, and then he'd use the empty bottle to pee it at night. And I'll be honest, I did it twice.
She did it too.
Someone said, what did you do when you were bored? You have a decent amount of downtime. I brought my Kindle and I read quite a few books on the trail.
I bought this like little chessboard. It was so cool. It was on the street. We also became champs at Sky Joe.
Yeah, we
played Sky Joe.
That was one of the best things someone brought.
We were pros.
It's just a little card game like this big, not too heavy, and we played and played and played that card game.
10 times. Correct.
Yeah, someone said, how expensive was it? This is what the pricing was like for us. It might be different for you if you are flying from somewhere else or using a different company or have more hiking gear than we did. So it was $2,500 for gear, about $700 for flights per person, and then $1,000 per person for the guides. And then we took out probably
cash.
close to like $800 in cash
tips,
to tip our
food.
guides, to get like snacks, to buy like souvenirs, stuff like that. It's probably close to like a $4,000 to $5,000 trip. What was the easiest part about hiking?
We had a fun group. We loved the group so much we're like talking about another trip.
Yeah, we're like, we should travel together more often.
And we're still to this day actually
texting in our group thread. Someone said, how many miles in total did you have to hike? Our group has been debating this for a while because we're not 100% sure. It's like 80 to 90 miles total.
There and back.
But because we helicoptered down, it would be a little less than half because we wouldn't have the acclimatization hikes on the way down.
True.
So we probably hiked close to 50. What happened with the helicopter at the end, and why were you and Dakota left behind? So this is something I feel like no one talked about when we did our research. And I'm gonna tell you now, because if you were thinking about doing this trip, do yourself a favor and don't bother getting flights to Lukla and back. So what you do is you fly from wherever you live to Kathmandu, and from Kathmandu to Lukla, get a helicopter from the get-go.
It'll save you time.
Getting in and out of the Lukla airport is very difficult, and you can get stuck for days, and your trip can get delayed on the front end, or you can get delayed on the back end. Just do yourself a favor and helicopter straight from Kathmandu to Lukla, and from Lukla to Kathmandu. Just book it. It will save you potentially days like us. If we had done that, we would have saved 3 days in Lukla. Favorite food on the trip?
Mine was definitely the ramen noodles.
Oh, the Tibetan bread.
The scones.
Yeah, they were like the
really
big
good too.
scones, and we put butter and honey. Say the eggs, and they serve a lot of stuff with potatoes, and I love potatoes, so I always devoured the potatoes. I think my least favorite thing that we ate.
Mine's garlic soup.
Really? I liked the
Ty
garlic
and I,
soup.
after the first day, we're like, please no garlic soup.
Someone is asking about water. We were told before we went on the trek that the water on like the Everest hike is not clean enough for you to just drink straight up. So we were told to bring these little tiny like purification tablets that you can put in your water, and it purifies the water so that you can drink it. However, we discovered while we were on the trek that you can buy water bottles all the way up the mountain. The problem is that they get more and more expensive as you get up the mountain. It was, I think, probably day 5 that most of us switched over to using the purification tablets, and then only buying the water bottles when it was like really necessary. Basically, what does intimacy look like on the trip? Non-existent. You are so tired. It's so cold.
Thin walls. You could hear the people next to you breathing.
Yeah, we barely touched each other the whole trip. Like, don't plan on, like, if you are going with a spouse or a partner, do not plan on there being any kind of romance involved in this trip. It's really just,
you're dead. You're
tired, and that's it. Someone said, do you have to pack all of your trash out? There is a lot of trash up past base camp to the summit of Everest, because a lot of the hikers who are summiting Everest, it's so hard that they just throw their trash on the ground. I think it's the people in Nepal, I'm not sure who's in charge of it, but that they've put a rule in place for people who are choosing to summit Everest that they have to bring down a certain amount of trash with them or they get fined. And on our portion of the hike, so from Lukla all the way to base camp, there really was not a lot of trash. If we saw it, we picked it up. We brought little doggy bags, like our toilet paper, we would put in doggy bags and tie them to our backpacks, or like granola bar wrappers. And then once you got to the tea house, they would have like trash cans or places that you could throw trash away, and we would just take the bags off our backpacks and put it in the trash. Someone said, what did the planning process look like for this trip? We scheduled the trip so a year before we even left. We had to submit a lot of like travel and insurance paperwork to the guide group. We had to get travel insurance. We had to get international eSIM card. You had to get all of your gear. You had to get vaccinations. Even when you got there, we had to do like a visa. We were not in charge of this trip, and so I give 100% credit to my mom and my uncle and Camry and Charlie, because they really were the ones that told us what to do, and we just did it. Someone said, do you regret not hiking down? No.
Not at all.
The way that the trip worked out for us and the timing of the the trip with my surgery and Camry's graduation, we only had 2 days to hike all the way back down. Usually they have you hike down in more like 4 days. Don't be fooled. When I say hike down, I do not mean actually hike down, because everything on Everest is like this. So it's actually going up and down on your way down the mountain. So it would have been a really, really difficult hike down. And we did have a couple people in our group and they were like, no, I think we can do it. And they hiked down. And even they, by the end, were like, that was a lot. Like, that was hard. And so I'm really actually grateful that we helicoptered down.
Me too. I've never been in a helicopter before. I really wanted to. And we got to see everything.
Yeah, it was
like, seeing the Himalayas in the air was the coolest thing.
What day was the most tiring?
Mine was the first. Waking up at 1 a.m., doing the 6-hour van ride, the whole day at the airport, and then walking that night.
I thought the first day was great. I had no issues with the first day. It would be a toss-up between the day that we hiked to Namche, which was the 217 flights of stairs day. That was a hard day. That was a long and hard day. The next one would be the Everest Base Camp day. It's just you're so high that everything feels so much harder. That might have been the other hardest.
It was crazy. You're so high. Like, this is something about sleeping at night. You're so high, like when you get in your sleeping bag and you turn over just a little bit, you're like huffing and puffing.
It's
like
every
breathing through a
movement
straw.
is hard. A lot of people are asking about if I started my period and what was that like. I was told before I went on the trip that it's super common for girls to start their periods at high altitude. Somehow, almost every girl on our trip ended their period right before we went and started right when we got home. And that is what happened to me. I actually did not start my period on the trip. My mom was on her period on the trip. She had mild cramping and stuff while we were hiking and she handled it like a champ. Yeah, like, ugh, I can't imagine doing that. Best tips for getting used to the acclimatization. You mentioned earlier already drinking water.
Drinking water is a big thing.
Lots of water.
And slow.
Hiking slow. Even if you were a really fast hiker and a really experienced hiker, hiking slow. You're giving your body time to get used to the altitude. The other thing that our guides did that helped a ton was we did the acclimatization hike. Every couple of days we would spend a day going up a really tall mountain and then coming back down just to get our bodies used to the altitude. They also fed us a lot of garlic and ginger, honey. No one in our group took Diamox. So Diamox is like a medicine that a lot of people think it helps with altitude sickness. I'm actually allergic to Diamox, so I could not take it at all. So is my mom and Camry. So we couldn't take Diamox. We did all make it to base camp with no Diamox. What is the lowest that your group's oxygen level ever got to? So we took our pulse ox, which is basically how much oxygen is in your blood, in your body. You should be at all times around 98 to 100%. Right now in Texas, would probably be 98%. If you're lower than that, there's usually an issue. And in the US, they will sometimes like hospitalize you or get you looked at by a doctor if you are below 90. That is not the case on Everest. You are gonna have low oxygen levels because you are so high. So they take your pulse ox and they told us that they are not even gonna be worried about you unless you were below 60%.
My lowest was in the 70s.
Probably somewhere in the low 70s would probably be the lowest that our group got. You do kind of feel like your brain isn't working quite as well. Like you're like, what normally would be like an easy answer to a question, you're like, let me think about that. Cause your brain is just not, you're not getting enough oxygen. Essentially your body is like,
Some of us at the dinner table were like.
Yeah, there were quite a few funny moments where people were like, you just kind of feel like you're in a brain fog a little bit the higher you get. Would you do it again?
Personally, no.
Personally, no.
Am I glad I did it? Yes, 100%.
Yeah. If I had never done it before, I would 100% go on this trip. It was an experience of a lifetime. It was something I had never done before. The best views I have ever seen in my entire life. Just such an incredible physical and mental and emotional experience to be a part of. Would I go back and do it again? No, probably not. In my opinion, I would want to go do something else.
So if you are thinking about it, definitely do it. It is amazing.
It is awesome.
It's unreal.
It was a really incredible trip. Hopefully that answered everyone's questions. Let us know if you have any ideas for what our next really cool bucket list trip could be. Comment down below and we will see y'all next week.
See ya.
Bye y'all.